People will test you in small ways before they test you in large ones. They will interrupt your sentences, step over your silences, lean on your kindness as if it were a handrail built for their convenience. They will laugh a little too loudly at your seriousness, dismiss your boundaries as if they were suggestions, and then wonder why your eyes grow tired of explaining. I have learned that disrespect does not always arrive wearing boots and shouting. Often it comes softly, smiling, asking favors, borrowing your time and never returning it. And because it is quiet, because it is familiar, we sometimes call it normal. But normal is not the same as acceptable, and love is not the same as endurance. I want to tell you this first: your worth does not require a witness. It is not measured by how politely you are ignored, or how skillfully you endure being diminished. You were not born to shrink so that other people could feel tall. You were not shaped to be a cushion for the sharp edges of someone else's behavior. You are allowed to take up space with your breath, your voice, your decisions, and your no. When someone refuses to respect you, that refusal says everything about their education and nothing about your value. Still, knowing this truth in your bones takes practice, and practice is built from choices you make again and again. The first choice is to recognize disrespect when it shows up, even when it arrives wearing familiarity. Disrespect is not only cruelty, it is also neglect. It is the habit of speaking over you, the convenience of forgetting your limits, the casual joke that lands on your dignity and asks you to laugh along. If you keep translating these moments into excuses, you will teach people how to treat you. They will learn that your silence is permission and your patience is an invitation. Recognition is not about becoming suspicious of everyone. It is about becoming honest with yourself. Your body knows before your mouth does. Notice the tightening in your chest, the heat in your face, the small voice that says, "This doesn't feel right." That voice is not weakness, it is wisdom asking for the floor. Once you recognize what is happening, the next choice is to respond with clarity instead of performance. You do not owe anyone a speech to justify your boundaries. You do not need to decorate your truth with apologies or soften it until it loses its shape. A calm, steady sentence can carry more power than 1,000 explanations. Speak from your center, not from your wounds. When you say what you need without drama, you teach others how to hear you. Some people will be surprised, some will be offended, some will adjust. Their reaction is not your responsibility. Your responsibility is to speak in a way that you can stand behind when you are alone with yourself. Clarity also means choosing the right moment and the right tone. Disrespect feeds on chaos. It starves in the presence of composure. You do not have to match someone's volume to match their importance. When you hold your voice steady, you hold your ground. If words are twisted or dismissed, repeat them once, clean and simple, and then let silence do its work. Silence, when chosen, is not surrender. It is a boundary that breathes. It tells the room that you are not here to argue about your humanity. Another choice waits for you when clarity has been offered and ignored. That choice is distance. Not everyone deserves access to your inner rooms. Distance is not punishment, it is protection. You can care about people without placing yourself within reach of their harm. You can wish them well and still walk away from their patterns. Distance may look like fewer conversations, shorter visits, slower replies, or a complete goodbye. It may look like changing the subject or changing your seat. It may look like choosing peace over proximity. Distance is an act of self-respect that teaches you how much quiet you need to hear yourself again. There is a grief that comes with distance, especially when the person you step away from once mattered to you. Grief is the price of growth, and it is a fair price. You are not cruel for choosing yourself. You are not cold for closing a door that keeps slamming on your fingers. You are learning the difference between loyalty and self-betrayal. Loyalty that costs you your dignity is too expensive. Self-betrayal is the kind of debt that compounds with interest, and one day you wake up owing yourself an apology you cannot afford to delay. As you create distance where it is needed, there is another choice that strengthens you from the inside. That choice is to cultivate allies and environments that reflect respect back to you. We are shaped by the rooms we stand in and the voices we listen to. When you surround yourself with people who speak to you with care, who listen without waiting for their turn, who celebrate your growth without competing with it, your nervous system learns a new language. Respect becomes familiar. It stops feeling like a luxury and starts feeling like a standard. In such company, you remember who you are. You laugh differently. You breathe more fully. You stop bracing for impact. Building these environments requires intention. It may ask you to leave spaces where you are tolerated but not valued. It may ask you to risk being seen by people who can actually meet you. Vulnerability in the right place is strength. You do not need a crowd, you need a few good witnesses. When you are held in respect, you carry that posture into other rooms. People feel it before you speak. It is the quiet confidence of someone who knows their footing. Disrespect has a harder time finding a home where self-respect lives. There is also the choice of how you speak to yourself when no one else is listening. The way you handle disrespect from others is inseparable from the way you treat yourself. If your inner voice repeats the insults you receive, you will stay in places that echo them. Begin to notice your self-talk. Replace the habit of self-criticism with self-honesty. You can be honest without being cruel. You can hold yourself accountable without tearing yourself down. When you practice respect inwardly, you become less available for disrespect outwardly. Your standards rise, not because you think you are better than anyone else, but because you know what you need to stay whole. Sometimes, handling disrespect requires the courage to name consequences. Boundaries without consequences are wishes. Consequences do not need to be threats. They can be choices you make for your own well-being. If a line is crossed again, you leave the room. If a promise is broken again, you stop relying on it. If your time is wasted again, you stop offering it so freely. Consequences teach others how to treat you. But more importantly, they teach you that your words matter. When your actions align with your values, your life becomes simpler. You stop negotiating with behavior that drains you. It is important to say this clearly: not every battle is worth your breath. Some people are committed to misunderstanding you. Some thrive on reaction and shrink from calm. In these moments, handling disrespect means refusing to participate. You can disengage without explaining yourself. You can let go of the fantasy that one perfect sentence will change someone who benefits from not changing. Peace is not passive, it is strategic. It chooses where to spend energy and where to save it. When you stop feeding what harms you, you starve it of influence. As you practice these choices, you may notice a shift. People who relied on your silence may push back when you speak. People who enjoyed your availability may resent your limits. This does not mean you are doing something wrong. Growth often feels like disruption to those who were comfortable with the old arrangement. Stay steady. You do not need to convince anyone of your worth. You are not here to audition for basic decency. The right people will adjust, the rest will reveal themselves. Either way, you gain clarity. I want to speak to the part of you that worries about being seen as difficult. That fear has kept many good people small. There is a difference between being difficult and being clear. Being clear may disappoint those who benefited from your confusion. Let them be disappointed. You are not responsible for managing everyone's feelings at the cost of your own dignity. Kindness does not require self-erasure. Gentleness does not require silence. You can be compassionate and firm at the same time. In fact, that combination is powerful. Handling disrespect also means understanding that respect cannot be forced. You can request it, model it, and require it in your presence, but you cannot make someone change their character. Let go of that burden. When you stop trying to fix others, you free your hands to build your life. Focus on what you can control: your responses, your boundaries, your environment, your self-talk. These are the tools that shape your days. Use them with intention. There will be moments when you falter, when you laugh off a comment that hurt you, when you stay longer than you should, when you give one more chance because hope is stubborn. Be gentle with yourself then. Learning self-respect is not a straight line, it is a practice. Each time you notice and adjust, you strengthen the muscle. Each time you choose yourself, even quietly, you rewrite the story you tell about your worth. Remember that respect begins with presence. When you are present with yourself, you notice when something is wrong. When you are present with others, you communicate with honesty. Presence grounds you. It keeps you from abandoning yourself in the moment. If your mind is always racing to keep the peace, your body pays the price. Slow down. Breathe. Give yourself permission to pause before responding. That pause is where your power lies. I have seen people transform their lives not by becoming louder, but by becoming truer. They stopped explaining themselves to those who never listened. They stopped carrying conversations alone. They stopped confusing familiarity with safety. They learned to walk away with grace, to speak up without apology, to choose rooms that chose them back. Their lives did not become free of conflict, but they became free of unnecessary pain. You deserve relationships where respect is not rationed, where your voice is not an inconvenience, where your boundaries are not jokes. You deserve to be spoken to with care and considered in decisions that affect you. You deserve rest from the labor of being misunderstood. Handling disrespect is not about winning arguments. It is about protecting your peace and honoring your humanity. If you remember nothing else, remember this: you teach people how to treat you by what you allow and by what you refuse. Each day offers you small chances to choose yourself. Take them. Speak when it matters. Step back when it doesn't. Build a life that does not require you to be smaller than you are. Stand in your worth quietly if you must, boldly when you can, and always with the certainty that respect is not something you earn by suffering. It is something you claim by knowing who you are and acting like it. There comes a moment in life when you realize that being liked has been costing you more than it ever paid you back. You remember all the times you softened your voice so no one would feel challenged, all the moments you swallowed your truth so the room would stay comfortable, all the days you smiled while your spirit quietly folded in on itself. Wanting to be liked can feel harmless, even kind, but over time it teaches you to abandon yourself in small, almost invisible ways. You start editing your thoughts before they reach your lips. You start measuring your worth by other people's approval. You start mistaking acceptance for love and silence for peace. The need to be liked often begins early. It grows in classrooms, at dinner tables, in homes where praise felt conditional and affection felt earned. You learn quickly that pleasing others keeps the air calm. You learn that being agreeable makes you safe. So you become good at it. You become the one who understands everyone, who forgives quickly, who gives second and third chances even when the first one bruised you. You learn how to make yourself easy to digest, even when it means making yourself smaller. And for a while, people respond warmly to that version of you. They smile, they approve, they stay. But approval that requires self-erasure is not kindness. It is a quiet negotiation where you always pay more. Releasing the need to be liked does not mean becoming hard or careless. It means becoming honest. It means allowing yourself to exist without performing for acceptance. When you stop trying to be liked, you start telling the truth in your own voice. not the version that sounds safest to others. You stop laughing at jokes that wound you. You stop nodding along to opinions that erase you. You stop volunteering your time and energy out of fear that saying no will make you disposable. And when you do this, something shifts. Some people become uncomfortable. Some pull away. Some accuse you of changing. What they are really noticing is that you are no longer bending in familiar ways. There is a particular fear that rises when you begin to let go of this need. It whispers that if you are fully yourself, you will be alone. It tells you that love is fragile and conditional, that belonging must be earned through sacrifice. But that fear is rooted in an old lesson that no longer serves you. The truth is that being liked by everyone requires you to betray yourself, and being loved by the right people requires you to show up whole. You cannot have both at the same time. One asks you to disappear in pieces, the other asks you to arrive as you are. When you stop chasing likability, you also stop explaining yourself excessively. You no longer feel compelled to justify your boundaries or soften your decisions so they will land gently. You begin to understand that clarity is not cruelty. You can be respectful without being submissive. You can be kind without being available at all costs. The world may have taught you that asserting yourself makes you difficult, but difficulty is often just what honesty looks like to people who benefit from your silence. Letting go of the need to be liked gives you the courage to stand in that discomfort without rushing to fix it. This release also changes how you listen to criticism. When approval is your currency, every opinion feels like a verdict on your worth. A raised eyebrow, a cold tone, a withdrawn message can send you spiraling into self-doubt. But when you no longer need to be liked, you learn to sort feedback from judgment. You listen for what is useful and let the rest pass through without lodging in your chest. You stop handing strangers the authority to define you. You begin to trust your own assessment of who you are and how you move through the world. There is grief in this process. You mourn the version of yourself who worked so hard to be loved, who believed that endurance was proof of goodness. You mourn relationships that only functioned when you were quieter, softer, more accommodating. You may feel guilt when you choose yourself, especially if others are disappointed by your growth. Sit with that guilt long enough to understand it, but not long enough to obey it. Guilt is often the echo of old conditioning, not a signal that you are doing something wrong. As the need to be liked loosens its grip, your relationships begin to change shape. Some fall away naturally. Others deepen in unexpected ways. The people who remain are those who can meet you without needing you to perform. With them, you feel less pressure to impress and more freedom to be present. Conversations feel lighter because you are not constantly monitoring yourself. Disagreements become survivable because your connection is not built on approval alone. You learn that respect lasts longer than popularity, and authenticity lasts longer than charm. Releasing this need also restores your energy. So much of your exhaustion may not come from what you do, but from who you pretend to be while doing it. When you stop curating yourself for acceptance, you reclaim that energy. You have more space to think, to create, to rest. You notice how peaceful it feels to move through the day without rehearsing conversations in your head or replaying moments to check if you were liked enough. Your nervous system begins to settle because it is no longer on constant alert, scanning for signs of rejection. This does not mean rejection stops happening. It means it stops defining you. You learn that being disliked does not equal being wrong. Sometimes it simply means you refuse to abandon yourself. Sometimes it means you set a boundary where access used to be unlimited. Sometimes it means you spoke a truth that disrupted someone else's comfort. You can survive that. You can survive being misunderstood. You can survive not being everyone's favorite. What you cannot survive, at least not without cost, is the slow erosion that comes from living against yourself. When you no longer need to be liked, your yes becomes meaningful and your no becomes clean. You give because you want to, not because you are afraid. You show up because you choose to, not because you feel obligated. This integrity becomes visible, even if it is quiet. People sense when your actions are aligned with your values. They may not always applaud it, but they feel its weight. There is a steadiness that comes from self-approval, a groundedness that no amount of external validation can replace. You begin to understand that your job is not to be palatable, but to be real. Not to be admired, but to be aligned. Not to collect approval, but to cultivate peace. As this understanding settles in, you move differently. You speak more slowly. You listen more honestly. You stop bargaining with your boundaries. You stop mistaking attention for connection. You allow yourself to be seen by those who are capable of seeing you, and you release the rest without resentment. Letting go of the need to be liked is not a single decision, it is a daily practice. It shows up in small moments, in choices that no one else may notice. It shows up when you choose rest over proving your worth, when you choose honesty over harmony, when you choose yourself even though your hands shake a little while doing it. Over time, those small choices build a life that feels truer, steadier, more your own. A life where you are no longer negotiating your value. A life where you can stand quietly in who you are without waiting for permission from anyone else, without scanning faces for approval, without shaping your soul to fit into places that were never meant to hold it. Self-respect is not something you announce. It is something you practice in private long before anyone notices it in public. It begins in the quiet moments when no one is watching, when you decide whether to tell yourself the truth or soothe yourself with excuses. Before the world learns how to treat you, you teach yourself how to live inside your own skin. If you rush to demand respect from others without first building it within, you will find yourself constantly negotiating, constantly explaining, constantly disappointed. Respect asked for without self-respect behind it sounds like a request. Respect grounded in self. Respect feels like a standard. Building self-respect requires an honest look at the ways you abandon yourself. It asks you to notice how often you say yes when your spirit says no, how often you stay silent to avoid discomfort, how often you accept behavior you would never offer in return. These moments seem small, almost harmless, but they stack quietly. Each time you ignore your own limits, you teach yourself that your needs are optional. Each time you betray your values for convenience, you weaken your own trust. Self-respect grows when your actions start matching what you claim to believe about yourself. This kind of respect is built through consistency, not grand gestures. It is built when you keep promises to yourself, even the ones no one else knows about. When you say you will rest, and you actually rest. When you say you will leave, and you actually leave. When you say something matters to you, and you protect it with your time, your energy, your attention. Integrity toward yourself becomes the foundation. Without it, confidence is fragile. With it, even quiet people carry authority. Many people try to demand respect while still doubting themselves. They speak firmly on the outside but negotiate endlessly on the inside. Others feel that hesitation. People respond to the energy beneath your words more than the words themselves. When you respect yourself, your posture changes. Your voice steadies. You no longer rush to be understood. You no longer chase validation to confirm what you already know. Respect stops being something you argue for and becomes something you expect through how you show up. Self-respect also means accepting responsibility for your choices without turning that responsibility into punishment. It means acknowledging mistakes without using them as proof that you are unworthy. Shame erodes self-respect faster than failure ever could. When you treat yourself with fairness, You learn how to extend fairness to others without sacrificing yourself. You stop confusing kindness with self-neglect. You stop believing that suffering earns you dignity. You understand that dignity is maintained by care, not endurance. There is discipline involved in building self-respect, and discipline is often misunderstood as harshness. In truth, it is devotion. It is choosing long-term peace over short-term approval. It is choosing alignment over applause. Discipline looks like setting boundaries even when your voice trembles, like walking away from situations that drain you even when familiarity pulls you back. Each disciplined choice strengthens your sense of self. Over time, you begin to trust yourself more, and that trust is visible to others. When self-respect is strong, you become selective without becoming cruel. You no longer need to announce your worth or defend your boundaries aggressively. You simply live them. You stop over-explaining your decisions. You stop engaging in conversations that require you to prove your humanity. You recognize when something is beneath your standards and you disengage without drama. This is not arrogance, it is clarity. You are not placing yourself above others. You are placing yourself back in your own care. Building self-respect also requires you to confront the fear of loss. Sometimes the price of respecting yourself is losing access to people, roles, or spaces that once defined you. That loss can feel frightening, especially if you have been taught that your value depends on being needed or included. But self-respect teaches you that belonging at the cost of self-betrayal is not belonging at all. What leaves when you choose yourself often makes room for what can truly meet you. As self-respect grows, the way you handle disrespect changes. You become less reactive and more decisive. Instead of arguing, you observe. Instead of pleading, you choose. You recognize patterns faster because you are no longer invested in denying them. You understand that respect demanded from a place of insecurity invites power struggles, while respect expected from a place of self-trust sets the tone. People may test your boundaries at first, but consistency teaches them where you stand. There is a quiet confidence that comes from knowing you can rely on yourself. You stop fearing confrontation because you know you will not abandon yourself in it. You stop fearing rejection because you know your worth is not decided by someone else's response. This inner steadiness allows you to engage with the world without shrinking or posturing. You listen more deeply. You speak more honestly. You choose more carefully. Respect from others becomes a response to who you are, not a favor you hope to receive. Self-respect also reshapes your inner dialogue. You stop speaking to yourself in ways you would never speak to someone you love. You correct yourself without cruelty. You encourage yourself without illusion. This internal environment matters because it becomes the blueprint for your external relationships. The respect you extend inward sets the minimum standard for what you tolerate outward. When that standard is clear, you stop negotiating with disrespect. You simply recognize it as misalignment and move accordingly. Demanding respect without self-respect often sounds like anger, while building self-respect sounds like certainty. One seeks control, the other establishes presence. One exhausts you, the other sustains you. As you continue to build this foundation, you notice how much lighter life feels when you are not constantly proving your value. You begin to understand that respect is not something you chase. It is something you attract by standing firmly in who you are, by honoring yourself when it would be easier not to, by choosing alignment over approval, by becoming someone you trust even when no one else is watching. Walking away without closing your heart is one of the hardest lessons a person can learn, because everything in you wants to believe that distance must come with bitterness, that separation must be sharp, that leaving means hardening yourself against feeling. From a young age, we are taught stories where strength looks cold and survival looks detached, where protecting yourself requires you to stop caring. But life teaches a subtler truth. You can step back without becoming cruel. You can leave without poisoning your spirit. You can choose yourself without turning your heart into a locked room. Many people stay where they are disrespected not because they enjoy the pain, but because they fear what leaving will turn them into. They worry that if they walk away, they will become like those who hurt them, indifferent and distant, stripped of empathy. So they endure. They explain. They forgive endlessly. They carry wounds quietly, believing that staying proves goodness. But goodness that costs you your peace is not virtue. It is exhaustion disguised as loyalty. Walking away does not mean you stop loving. It means you stop allowing love to be used against you. There is a difference between an open heart and an unguarded one. An open heart feels deeply, but it also knows when something is unsafe. An unguarded heart stays exposed even when harm is repeated. Learning to walk away without closing your heart begins with understanding this difference. You are not required to keep touching the fire to prove that you believe in warmth. You are allowed to learn from the burn. You are allowed to move your hands back and still believe in tenderness. Often, the first emotion that rises when you consider walking away is guilt. Guilt tells you that leaving is selfish, that endurance is proof of character, that your pain is less important than someone else's comfort. This guilt is rarely born from truth. It is born from conditioning. It comes from being praised for being agreeable, for being understanding, for being the one who holds everything together. Walking away challenges that identity. It asks you to redefine what kindness looks like when it includes yourself. It asks you to sit with discomfort long enough to realize that not every ache is a warning. Some are signs of growth. Walking away without closing your heart also means releasing the need to be understood. You may never get the apology you deserved. You may never hear the acknowledgement that would make the leaving feel justified. Waiting for that moment can keep you tethered long after the relationship has stopped nourishing you. When you choose to walk away quietly, without dramatics or bitterness, you reclaim your energy. You stop handing your healing over to someone else's awareness. You accept that closure is something you can give yourself. There is a softness required to leave well. It is the softness of compassion, not for behavior that harmed you, but for the reality that not everyone is capable of meeting you where you stand. Some people are limited by their fears, their wounds, their habits. Recognizing this does not mean excusing harm. It means understanding that you do not have to stay to prove that you see their humanity. You can hold compassion from a distance. You can wish someone healing without volunteering to be part of their lesson. Many people confuse walking away with shutting down emotionally. They believe that to survive loss, they must numb themselves, lower their expectations, stop caring altogether. But numbness is not strength. It is a pause button on pain that also silences joy. Walking away without closing your heart means allowing yourself to feel the sadness, the disappointment, the relief, the love that still lingers. It means trusting that your heart is strong enough to feel without being destroyed by feeling. It means choosing wholeness over armor. As you learn this, you may notice anger rising. Anger is often a guard at the gate of grief. It appears to protect you from feeling too much too soon. Listen to it without letting it take over. Anger can help you see where boundaries were crossed, where dignity was compromised. But staying in anger too long hardens what it was meant to protect. Walking away with an open heart means letting anger inform you, not define you. It means allowing it to pass through, not set up residence. There is also fear in walking away gently. Fear that kindness will be mistaken for weakness. Fear that without sharp words or dramatic exits, your pain will be invisible. But your healing does not require an audience. You do not need to make noise to make your choice valid. Quiet departures are often the most powerful, because they are not fueled by the need to punish. They are fueled by the need to breathe. When you leave without cruelty, you deny conflict the satisfaction of consuming you. Walking away without closing your heart requires trust in yourself. Trust that you can survive loneliness without returning to what hurt you. Trust that you can miss someone without reaching back. Trust that love does not disappear just because access ends. This trust is built slowly. It grows each time you choose not to engage, each time you resist the urge to explain yourself one last time, each time you remind yourself why you left. Over time, the urge to reopen old doors fades, replaced by a quiet respect for your own resilience. This way of leaving also changes how you remember the past. Instead of rewriting history to justify your pain, you allow complexity. You acknowledge the good without letting it erase the bad. You honor what was real without denying what was harmful. This balanced memory keeps your heart open without trapping you in nostalgia. It allows you to carry lessons forward without carrying resentment. You stop needing to villainize others to validate your choice. Your clarity stands on its own. Walking away with an open heart reshapes future relationships. You enter them more aware, more grounded. You recognize early signs of misalignment because you are no longer addicted to potential. You value consistency over intensity. You choose safety over familiarity. And because your heart remains open, you do not punish new people for old wounds. You remain curious. You remain kind. You remain capable of connection, but you are no longer willing to trade self-respect for it. There is courage in leaving without burning bridges, but there is also wisdom in knowing which bridges should not be crossed again. An open heart does not mean unlimited access. It means clear boundaries held with grace. You can love someone and still know that closeness is no longer possible. You can forgive and still remember. Forgiveness does not require reconciliation. It requires release. Release of the belief that staying is the only proof of goodness. Walking away gently also invites you to redefine strength. Strength is not how much you can tolerate. It is how well you can discern what is healthy for you. Strength is choosing peace over being right, dignity over drama, alignment over attachment. Strength is allowing yourself to be soft in a world that often rewards hardness. It is trusting that softness, when paired with boundaries, is not a liability but a power. As you practice this way of leaving, you may notice that your heart does not shrink, it expands. It becomes more discerning, not more closed. You feel more deeply because you are no longer numbing yourself to survive. You cry when you need to. You laugh when you can. You allow life to move through you without gripping too tightly. This openness becomes your compass. It guides you toward people and places that can honor it. There will be moments when you question your choice, when memory paints the past in softer colors, when loneliness makes old pain feel familiar, and therefore tempting. In those moments, return to the reason you left, not the emotion of leaving. Remember how your body felt before you chose yourself. Remember the quiet exhaustion, the constant second-guessing, the way you had to shrink to stay. Let memory be honest, not selective. Let it support you, not pull you backward. Walking away without closing your heart is not about being saintly. It is about being sincere. Sincere with yourself about what you can carry and what you must set down. Sincere about the limits of others and the responsibility you have to your own life. It is about choosing to remain human in the face of disappointment, choosing tenderness without self-sacrifice, choosing growth over familiarity. Over time, you may realize that walking away did not end your capacity for love, it refined it. You love with more wisdom now. You love without losing yourself. You love in ways that feel sustainable. And even when you walk alone for a while, your heart remains available, curious, alive. You are no longer afraid that choosing yourself will turn you cold. You know now that the coldest thing you ever did was stay where your warmth was taken for granted. And the bravest thing you ever did was leave with your heart still open, trusting that it would find places where it could rest without having to bleed.